How much does your race actually matter when it comes to dating? In today's video, we're going to answer this question because this is a topic that is fairly sensitive, and for that reason, it rarely gets talked about within the dating scene. Now, of course, we should not have a victim mentality. We shouldn't worry about the things that we can't control. However, with this video, I want to offer some perspective because me as a minority myself, and after working with hundreds of guys of every single race, I've seen firsthand when it comes to the harsh reality of how your race actually affects your dating results. So within this video, I'm going to provide you some objective facts alongside with my perspective and experiences. All right, so stay tuned, subscribe. Let's go ahead and get right into it. Now, the first thing we got to discuss is the race hierarchy. Yes, there is a hierarchy when it comes to race and how people tend to view it. And the first thing we have to discuss is between genders. And the first thing you might notice is that Latina women have it slightly easier than Latino men. And this makes perfect sense, right? Everybody loves a Latina. Latinas are kind of like a white girl with more spiciness, more sex appeal, better culture. And for that reason, I personally have never met a man that said, no, I don't like big booty Latinas or women with straight, long black hair. I'm telling you, go to Colombia, you're gonna change your mind if you don't. I promise you. South America was an eye-opener. And this is probably another reason why the passport bros is such a big movement right now. Now, between black men and black women, black men for the most part are gonna have it a lot easier in comparison to black women. Black women, in terms of the female gender, tend to be at the lowest, which is unfortunate, but it's the harsh reality. And then up next, we got Asian women versus Asian men. Asian women tend to have it, once again, slightly easier than Asian men. You'll see a lot of Asian women with white guys, with black guys, or sometimes with their own Asian people, right? Now, between the genders, here's what I'm noticing is that women tend to have it easier than the men. The only exception is with black women and black men. So we got that out the way. Up next, let's talk about the hierarchy in terms of races between us men. And up first, we got the white male. The white male globally is gonna have the most appeal. It's just the way it is. I mentioned this before in a past video years ago, but honestly, if I was white, I would probably have more options. It's just the way it is. White is represented with higher status, especially in a lot of countries. Even in America, in a Western country, if you're white, you're gonna have the broadest appeal, and that's because simply you're the majority. We all know this. Up next, we got the Latinos, Muslims or Arabs, and black men. Now, it's hard to sort of quantify where these group of races sort of go into the hierarchy because this really comes down to preferences in the women. Most women, if they do have a preference of black men, Latinos, or even Muslim or Arab guys, it's because they have a unique preference. And this is something where I like to call you have niche appeal. And then also women who tend to date Latinos, Muslims, and blacks, you know, it's not that they're attracted to one particular race, but they'll tend to date all between that. I've met plenty of women where they've dated black guys, they dated Latinos, or maybe Muslims in the past, but they've honestly never dated a white guy. And here's what we gotta remember too, is that people have preferences. Think of even the woman who you like, the woman who you tend to go for. More than likely, there's gonna be a preference there, even if you like all women of all races. And when I say preference, think of a line of attractive women in a room. White, black, Indian, Hispanic, Latino, doesn't matter. Who are you naturally more gravitated towards? That's gonna be your preference. And even women sometimes don't even realize that they have preferences, but everybody has a preference, and that's all right. Now, moving back into the male hierarchy, at number 3, we have Asian men. This is even more niche appeal, and that's because we're getting more into the minorities. When it comes to black men, Arabs, and Latinos, especially in America, there's more of them depending on where you're at. And so a lot of people don't grow up with having crushes on Asian men unless they're into K-pop or whatever particular type of music or even anime in some cases. And for that reason, that's why Asian men are a little bit lower than all the other races. Also, there may be negative stereotypes associated with Asian men, such as being short or just overall lacking sex appeal and being too feminine. And then at the very bottom, when it comes to men, we already know Indian guys. Now, the reason why I think Indian guys are at the lowest spot is because, once again, the negative stereotypes associated with their culture as a whole. Now, all these things combined, especially in a westernized country, that's the reason why Indian men tend to be at the bottom. Now, what if you're mixed race? Because we're seeing a lot more mixed race couples, interracial couples, which we're going to get into. If you are mixed race, you kind of have the benefit of both. I would even argue that if you are mixed, you might have even more appeal to you, because the combination of different traits and characteristics between both genders that you have, whether it be black and white, black and Asian, Asian and white, Indian and white, Indian and black, whatever it is, tends to have a little bit of a more exotic sort of look to it. Think about the light-skinned girl with blue eyes and curly hair. Like, they're rare, and because they're rare, that makes them more attractive. So we went over some hierarchies in terms of race, and that was a objective truth. That's just the way it is. It's something we have to accept. Now, keep in mind, there are tons of exceptions, and this isn't so black and white, but it's just a rule on majority, especially once again within Western cultures. Now, moving on, here's what you have to remember is that for the most part, people tend to prefer to date within their own race across all countries and all bases. Asian men want Asian women, vice versa. Sometimes the white men will win in that case, let's be real. But black women prefer black men, and most black men prefer black women across majority bases. And the reason is because language, culture, and overall similarities and familiarity between groups. Even though interracial couples are getting more and more popular, for the most part, most people are dating within their race, and most people prefer to date long-term within their race. Also, and this is quite obvious, but your race is going to matter more when it comes to interracial dating. So if you're a black guy, for example, and you rarely date black women, then just know that the dating game is going to be slightly more difficult for you. And that's because, once again, to the first point, most people prefer to date within their own race. Now, you can be the exception, and we're going to talk about how you can be the exception, so stay tuned, but that's something you have to remember. And especially if you're an Indian or an Asian guy, if you're consistently after the blue-eyed blonde girl, it's going to be a little bit more difficult for you, man. A lot more difficult for some of you guys too, especially if you don't have a lot of leverage. Now, up next, and this is something that I mentioned in the past video about harsh truths about attraction, a lot of people aren't necessarily attracted to race, but they're more so attracted to phenotypes, how your race is expressed within itself. I'm a black man, I'm African American, but there's been times where I was able to attract a woman outside my race because they thought I was mixed, they thought I had Spanish in me. You know, I grow out my hair, it's a little bit curly, my facial features, my skin tone, my lips, like all this stuff shows the phenotype expression of that, not as a typical African man. So even within races, you're gonna have different phenotype expressions. If you're Asian, if you look like the K-pop boy band singer, that's going to be more popular with women than being the stereotypical sort of Chinese sort of look, right? Also, within black men, if you have typical African features, that's going to be less popular interracially. And here's what you got to remember too, is that a lot of beauty standards are catered to Eurocentric beauty standards. So features that of a white person, white male, white woman, everybody is trying to look like that because the world, at least on the Western side, has said that is attractive. Smaller features, smaller noses, you know, big lips are in now, but just having proportionate lips. Maybe having a looser hair texture and hair type versus having thick 4C afro hair. So all these things will go into your phenotype, and some phenotypes are more popular than others despite your race. Now, why is the majority, aka white people, more popular than that of minorities? That's because people tend to like what they see more often. If a woman grew up and there's nothing but black men around her, she's gonna end up liking black men. However, if a woman also grows up in a majority white area, or even if you're a guy, if you grow up in a majority white area, whatever you see on a constant basis, you're gonna start building an attraction towards. This is breeded within childhood. Think about your first celebrity crush you've ever had. What race was she? For me, for example, I know I had a crush on Chelsea from That's So Raven. I didn't have a crush on Raven. Chelsea from That's So Raven, you know, the white girl. And I remember logging on to Disney Channel, like sending her fan mail and all this stuff. And you know, when you're that age, you really don't see race. You see what is ever presented to you. So that's probably a reason why a lot of majorities tend to be favored within the dating market. Now, I kind of mentioned this, but one thing you also got to keep in mind is environmental factors or demographics. That's why if you are a minority, the importance of living in a diverse major city is going to be huge for your dating life. You can't grow up or be in a town with rednecks and white pride, white culture, and you're a minority. Your dating life is going to be horrible. And that's the reason why my dating life was horrible, especially in high school. And I almost had a culture shock moving into college, which was a lot more diverse. And women finally started paying attention to me. Back in high school, you know, the preppy blonde girls, they were with the jock football players with the nice flowy hair, blonde, blue eyes. Like, they weren't into me. Now, I had some girls into me, but those were the girls where they were a little too ratchet, hood, ghetto. Like, their vibe wasn't matching my vibe. And so for that reason, I just kind of played it out, and I was a virgin for a very long time because of it. It wasn't until I got to college to where I experienced more of a diverse culture to where that allowed me to have a more fulfilling dating life. Now let's talk about media and pop culture. For interracial dating especially, you'll notice that the women who are into minority men, maybe they grew up with their type of music. I know, for example, me being a black guy, a lot of women interracially who I would date are really into hip hop music. And at first, I would say about 10 years ago, liking black guys wasn't that cool. But I would say within the past 5 years, with, you know, the Kardashians dating black men, with them seeing, you know, different other celebrities and interracial dating, it has become more popular to like black men. Shout out to Michael B. Jordan. Whenever he did the Creed, Black Panther, my DMs got more flooded. And this is what we gotta keep in mind, is the hive mind of women. They go to wherever is hot. If it's no longer cool to like black guys, Asian guys, Indian guys, Hispanic guys, whatever it may be, then, you know, they're going to listen. And going back to the demographic thing, I saw this in real time whenever I was out there with Ocon, aka Chad. We've done a few videos on this channel. Ocon is a attractive, tall, stereotypical Chad looking guy. But we were in downtown Orlando. Downtown Orlando caters a lot towards the black scene. A lot of people there, no matter their race, are into black guys. You can see by the way they dress, by the way they talk, by the way they act, the music scene, like everything around that area is more black centered. And so when you approach women, and we did the rating video, they were consistently rating me higher, even though maybe on a global scale, Ocon would have done better. And this is once again the importance of just the culture in the area that you're from, and also how that girl grew up. If she grew up having a minority friend group, or she grew up watching BET, MTV, and just being more diverse within her own culture herself, she's going to be a lot more open to dating outside her race. Now, one thing I've also noticed when it comes to race and dating is that women will prefer to date their own race long term. So I'm talking about marriage and a long-term relationship, but they'll have fun, casual, short-term encounters with minorities. Maybe she won't date a black guy or marry a black guy, but she'll have a black guy as a friend with benefits, have a good time with them. It's almost like a fetishization of some sorts, which could be probed by the stereotypes of being a black guy, such as, you know, D size or whatever else. But maybe other minorities might face this too, is that you'll notice that, you know, you're just a fun toy, short-term thing. It's what it is. I've seen plenty of times where, you know, I had a good time with the girl, you know, we fell off, whatever. I go back to her Instagram a few years later, and she's dating, like married to a guy who looks totally different than me, myself. They kind of look similar. You married a guy with blue eyes and blonde hair. You know, it is what it is. Now, the point I want you guys to understand is that there's so many variables that will tell whether or not a woman is into interracial dating or dating outside her race. And we all know that race matters at this point in time. But here's how it can matter less, and that is becoming objectively more attractive, or forming yourself into a more attractive phenotype of whatever your race is. And you're gonna have to find somebody of the ideal phenotype that women tend to like about your race, and then try and mold yourself more into that if you want to. You don't have to do this, but if you really want to do that, you could. But like I said, the more handsome you are, the more objectively attractive you are, and I would say at least a 7 to 7.5, that's when you'll notice is that every race tends to like you. I noticed this a few years ago. I made myself more handsome, more mass appealing. I don't necessarily niche myself down too much, though I do have like tattoos and all that stuff. I'm not like the stereotypical sort of Tyrone or the hood max sort of guy. That's not me. And for that reason, I have appeal amongst all races. White women like me, Hispanic women like me, Asian women like me, black women like me, so on and so forth. And if you are able to sort of make yourself objectively more handsome and more mass appealing, then you too will notice that your race will start to matter less and less. And then also when it comes to your sexual market value, As long as that increases, that also matters less and less. Do you really think a woman who says, oh, I don't date black guys, wouldn't give Drake a chance, or Future, or 50 Cent in his prime? Like, all these girls will probably at the least hook up with a lot of these dudes. And if you guys don't believe me, look at some of your favorite celebrities, look at their comments. You're gonna see a diverse group of women who are thirsting after them no matter the race. And here's one thing too, guys, is that no matter your race, you could be a white man, you're still gonna struggle in dating if you don't have leverage. If you're an average to below average looking guy, white women still don't want you, even if you're a white guy. I promise you. Just the way it is. In the dating game now, you need leverage, whether it be your status, whether it be your money, whether it be your looks, whether it be your charisma, whether it be your confidence, your social skills, your social circle. Something about your life or about you needs to have leverage so that you can position yourself to be better than her, no matter what your race is. And like I said, if you are average to below average, women of your race still won't want you. It is what it is. So, does race matter? Yes, in some contexts and some scenarios, but can it not matter? Absolutely too. I'm a living testimony of it. I can date whoever I want. And for the most part, I've mostly have dated outside my race, so I'm being real with you. But I'm telling you, the more you fix yourself, the less it matters. And if you guys need more help fixing yourself, maybe modeling yourself after that attractive phenotype, fixing your style, increasing your sexual market value as a whole, then click the link down below to work with me one-on-one in my Digital Romeo mentorship. Here within this, I'm gonna tell you everything I've done, from my looks, sex appeal, to my Instagram presence, to everything in between, to even text game and setting up my dating app profiles, and show you exactly how you can do the same even if you're below average. And if you work with me, we're gonna aim to increase your SMV by at least 2 to 2.5 points. That way you have more appeal amongst anybody and everybody, no matter your city, no matter where you're from or who you like, all right? So be realistic about your race, but at the same time, don't let yourself have a victim mentality and mindset towards that, because if you have enough leverage, anything can be within your means. All right, so let me know your thoughts down below too. I'm gonna see you guys in the next video. Peace.